Hi, and welcome to the Self-Love Greenlight. This is me, Kavanagh-Thomas, and this is for everything self-love and self-care while in business. Today, we have the beautiful Jean Craster, and she is here with us today because, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there. Even though Jean is a life coach and a Maxwell executive program leader and DISC consultant, I have to say that we met last week for a friend of ours, Sam, who is in sales, and I have to say her energy is just absolutely beautiful. Now, Jean believes that you can make big impacts being authentically and fully you. She shares how thought becomes things and guides you to thrive through in your unique design. You benefit with the power to consciously create, making that impact right where you are and see the results that you enjoy. All this is using research-based verifiable tools. And towards this, she also works with business to grow their employees, self-leadership, and enhance team collaboration by knowing and growing their strengths and neutralizing their weaknesses. So what does Jean do? She helps individuals focus on the essence of what they want and what and why they want, and sustain it with impactful strategies stemming from a psychological framework and managing it with through attraction with thought attraction, to achieve fabulous turnarounds and wins. Now, I have to say, me and Jean had a chat last week and we just get on like a house on fire. It was just so beautiful to speak about what you do in such a, not just a psychological way, but we were talking about manifesting and how we go through life and how we think and feel on a daily basis. And I just want to share that you do workshops on personal and team growth, leadership and collaboration, and starting with DISC and world-renowned Maxwell leadership principles. I'm going to start with DISC profiling to begin with. Now, I know someone who does DISC profiling, but just for the audience, what is DISC profiling?
So DISC profiling is when you say people behave in fundamentally 4 different styles. Now, this is not to box you, but to understand that there are different levels of these 4 styles, and you have some or all of them in different varying degrees. However, you might have something more strong in a particular area, and another family member or another colleague might have that particular quality in a weaker, in a weaker strength. Or they might have something that's extremely strong and that's not your strength. Till you don't understand DISC, you sometimes might browbeat yourself thinking, oh, I'm not as good. I'm not as good. When you understand DISC, you're like, wait a minute, we each are in our strength zones. Let me focus on what I do well. I might be good at interacting and processing and engaging people with talk. Somebody else is good because they love being behind a desk with numbers, and that is where their strength zone is. So be careful when you browbeat yourself to understand, is that your strength zone? And are you working on your strength zone? So DISC is a great way to get started. It was actually coined by Dr. William Martson in 1928. And he's the same one who gave us the Wonder Woman and all those things. But, and it's not new as 1928. It was actually started way back in 440 BC and 44 by philosophers Empedocles and one more guy. They had it differently. They had it as choleric, sanguine, or some of them had air, fire, earth, water. But basically, whether it's intrinsic fluids or outside or mindset, the concept is the same, that there are 4 fundamental behavioral styles. And depending on the situation, your 4 fundamental styles show differently. And depending on the strengths others are blessed with, they show up differently for them. So it's good to know that, so you can pace yourself and sort of balance your interaction with others. Does that make sense, Trina?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And, you know, just to the audience, it just means that you identify your, I take it I'm getting this right, your strengths and weaknesses. And if you know your strengths and weaknesses, then you can, I suppose in a team, you would then recognize who's good at some things. They can do these things over here. And then you can utilize your strengths over here. Am I correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, rather than like really focusing on the weaknesses and trying to, you know, really lift them up, because it might be a struggle or a strain to someone. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, you mean well, but you're right. It might be a struggle for them. So when you realize that's not your strength zone, you give them the space and say, okay, what are you good at? Do that then, and let me help you be successful in that.
That's incredible, because it's such a, you know, it's such an in-depth way of working, but such a great way of working. And from a self-care perspective and a self-love perspective, within business in particular, we have strengths and weaknesses. There are some things that we are, you know, really great at, and that would be maybe, you know, putting forward our work or something, or, you know, working with someone. But maybe we've got some weaknesses in the background, and that might be dealing with social media, or, you know, or having to schedule things, you know, like the stuff, the accounts, or, you know, the things in the background that are not our, you know, necessarily our forte. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I recently had a VA, and while I was doing the thought stuff and the creation, she was so good at just getting stuff done. Like, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, where did you come from, right? But my point is, because I knew strengths, I was able to say, wait a minute, this is going to take me 6 hours, whereas it's going to take somebody else half an hour or 20 minutes, because they think that way. They're wired differently. But I can't ask them to do my job about thinking and creating, because they're not blessed that way, right? So when you realize that, you're able to have a lot of self-care for yourself to say, what am I good at? What income can I bring with this? What would I do even if somebody was not paying me? And when you do that, you hone in on that, people recognize it and want to come in for you, for your strengths and how you shine, right?
Wow, that's incredible, because the thing that we're really honing in on today is in terms of, you know, inspired leadership and self-leadership and law of attraction. Because we spoke about law of attraction last week, and I just want to share with the audience so they can get to know you a little bit more. What made you get into what you do now? So what made you get into, you know, helping people change their outcomes?
Well, you know, John Maxwell, my friend and mentor, says, put the cookies on the lower shelf, in the sense, right? So when it was time to, I was in the finance industry for 23 plus years doing lending, mortgages and investments for my clients and millions of dollars. But when it was time to branch into my own coaching career, I said it made sense for people to know fundamentally what's happening in the universe. Like, you don't negotiate with the law of gravity. You don't say, I'm going to use the law of gravity today, to walk on this earth. Law of gravity uses you, and you sort of come to terms with it and build your houses that way, do everything that way. In the same way, when you understand law of attraction, you're not using law of attraction. Law of attraction is using you, the way you think and manage. So once you understand that there is no choice there is a law that's at work here, I better make sure I think right so that law is giving me what I want. When I understood that, I'm like, okay, people need to know this first before they need to know anything else, right? As soon as you understand the law of attraction and how it works, it's basically vibration and different levels of vibration, then you're just going to think the right way. You're not going to spend a lot of time and effort. You're going to save a lot of time and effort, because now you tweaked the right way of thinking. Does that make sense, Trina?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And, you know, I think when it's so true, because obviously, I mean, I've been manifesting for quite some time, but sometimes you don't realize what you've been manifesting until you start manifesting, until you start going down the road of law of attraction. And sometimes you think, you know, you might think something that's not so great, and then you think, oh, it's happened, but I don't want it to happen. But you've obviously thought about it, and then it's come to fruition. But then there are lots of things you think about that are great and that you want to happen. And I think I've spoken about this a few times, that letting go. Sometimes people find it very difficult to let go, don't they? How do you use that process of letting go in the work that you do right now, but to help people, you know, in self-leadership?
So in self-leadership, there are three concepts, right? One is to know how you're wired. Because if you know yourself, you can grow yourself, right? So one is to know how you're wired. Now, even without all this, without self-leadership, knowing how you're wired, there's still law of attraction. But the sweetest part is when you know things, you think in that way. And as soon as you start thinking, because knowledge is just thought, right? As soon as your awareness expands, you're like, oh, you think naturally in that way. It's not an exercise. But when you start thinking naturally in that way, now your focus is about something you know rather than something you didn't know. So now your focus is, oh, this is how it is, and this is how I'm expanding. So you're thinking about things that work for you. And guess what? More things are working for you. When you don't know about self-leadership, who am I? How am I wired? Why should I know myself? And if it's any encouragement to you, I took on being a Maxwell leadership coach when I didn't really have a team and wasn't managing a team, but I was very conscious that I was going to go on this path. And one of the first things that came to my mind is, I want to make sure I teach my kids the right thing instead of just pontificating. And when I started self-leadership and I started knowing myself, I'm like, oh my God, no wonder I'm different from my siblings, my spouse. My mom is different from me. And that's why she's been doing this all these years. I can see that. And when I did it for my kids, I mean, I can talk about others, but what impacts you the most is when you do it for your immediate family. I've got 3 of them, and you can see how each of them is wired differently. Now, instead of having talk of why don't you be like the others, I step back and say, okay, this is what you're good at, and how can you do this? This is what you're good at. You know, typically, this is where you'll run into problems. So make sure, you know, you handle that and manage that. Now, because of speaking in their strengths, they see self-leadership. They start from about self-leadership at a young age. Like they don't have to reach their mid-40s and say, oh, I've discovered myself.
Yeah.
Start at a young age, managing, knowing themselves, knowing their strengths. And and that was my aim. Sorry, I think I lost track of your question, Tina. My apologies.
That's okay. So I was saying about how would you put everything into self-leadership? So in terms of how would someone use law of attraction in self-leadership? But you were going on the right path anyway. And I could,
right.
Yeah, you were going on the right path anyway. So
wonderful. So just to close off, focus and genius is nothing but focus and unbridled focus. So genius is nothing but that. So as soon as you become aware, your thoughts simply go in that direction, right? And as soon as it goes in that direction, the more now where does law of attraction come in? So more feelings you attach to something, more feelings that are attached to a particular thought, the more chances and intensity of that happening is there. So as soon as you know about self-leadership, you're automatically thinking in a different way. Remember, there is no effort here. You just become aware of things that work for you. And the more you enjoy and become aware of things that work for you, the more at the back end, law of attraction is building this momentum that, oh, she likes this. She's happy. I'm going to show her more of this. Right? Because the intensity of your emotion that you're enjoying is higher. And here's where it's different. If you didn't know this, you had an unpleasant experience. Now the intensity of your emotion is higher, but for what? But for something that you didn't like. Law of attraction is not a human being that says, oh, Jane likes A or Jane likes B. Law of attraction just senses the intensity of the emotion. So if the intensity of the emotion is higher, it just gives you more of it, right?
Okay.
Now
And
you
that,
see
you
that?
know, and no, but that makes perfect sense for the whole conversation that we've been having as well, is that when, and I really need to ask you a question about something actually. I don't want to lose my train of thought. I am going to lose my train of thought as well. When you are trying to manifest something, and it is about the feeling, isn't it? About that feeling that you get from when you are manifesting and you are really happy, and then all of a sudden the universe, you see more of it because you're really happy. Otherwise, the opposite end of that is being really, really sad and knowing what you don't want. And if you know what you don't want, then obviously you're always going to get what you don't want, until you keep saying what you do want, until you keep showing how beautiful it is to be in that moment of what you do want. This is so much, I think we've had this discussion before, isn't it? It's so much Abraham Hicks, isn't it, as well? I think we've really branched into that, of being in the vortex, so to speak, being in that beautiful, beautiful energy that's around us, of knowing what you want, and really feeling into and thinking about what you want and enjoying what you want. Because I think,
And
yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, no, and here's the thing, we're humans. So we are going to have experiences that we like or we don't like. I mean, that's
Yeah,
why we're alive. If we only had experiences that we like, we'd be dead, because we are here to manifest. We are not here to have that silver spoon in our mouth 24/7. That's not our intention when all of us came in this world, right? So the little things that cause us contrast, a little bit of dishappiness, what do I really want? Could be walking on the road, could be a stranger, could be a relative, could be something in the house that didn't happen your way. It's fine. The trick as an manifester is, okay, this has happened, but what did I ideally want from this, right? If you are able to ideally hone in for 10, 17 seconds,
wow.
what do I ideally want from this, and let it go, that's all the universe needs. The universe doesn't need you to browbeat a topic 24/7. In fact, that's
Yeah.
where it is to your detriment. So as a manifestor, as long as you can hone in on that, okay, what do I want from this? And then let it go, that's it. And the second thing to your point is to stay in the energy. Again, it's not perfect. My mom would say, oh, and she's in her mid 70s. Oh, I just need to meditate all day. I'm like, Mom, no, you don't. Because again, if that's all we needed to all day, we'd be dead, right? The reason we're alive is because desires keep calling us forward to do something more, do something more. And that's what helps us wake up in the morning and say, okay, what am I going to do today? So whenever you're going through the day, as long as, Trina, to your point, you said feeling, as long as you're honing in on the feeling of what you're going through the day, you're a winner. If something is not right, if you have the mechanism to change what you're feeling, it's almost like sinking in to the higher part of yourself to say, I'm feeling bad, but what does my inner being say? My inner being probably thinks they're good, so I must see something good in them. So as long as you can move yourself to that little bit of higher plane, one step at a time, you're good. And sometimes don't worry if it sounds complicated, don't. Just try to say happy. So if you finish something and you a cup of coffee makes you happy, go have that. If a slice of bread, butter toast makes you happy, go. Going out for a walk, 20 minutes makes you happy, do that. As long as you intentionally sprinkle your day in a bunch of happy activities. It's as cliched as it sounds, or sometimes it might sound shy, like, what do you mean happy activities? Well, the thing is, you're honing in on that vibration. We're going to come to this term called vibration and the law of vibration, which is that which is like unto itself, it's drawn. It's
Yeah.
like multiple grids that you cannot see. But as soon as you stay happy, doesn't matter what, it can be just like looking at a nice YouTube for that few 30 seconds YouTube shorts. As soon as you hone in on the happy vibration, the universe around you says, oh, she's feeling happy. I need to give her more happy thoughts. So you see, you tend to have a happier uh, day, a happier day. What comes to you, of the many myriad of things that comes to you, what comes to you usually matches that high, happy vibration, right? So that's the easiest. I mean, we can go on, there's lots to this, but sometimes if you're looking for something easier, try that, start with that, because remember, it's a match. Uh, as humans, we tend to justify saying, oh, should I really be happy all the time? What about so many things? Shouldn't I be giving thought to that? Yes, you'll come to that, but you'll figure out what angle to catch that at a later stage. Whatever it is you're going through or you think you need to give your attention, you want the best outcome. So one of the first things you need to do is place yourself in a spot where you can attract the outcomes that you like and create the outcomes that you like.
That is beautiful, because I love how you said, put yourself in a spot where you create the outcomes that you like and attract the outcomes that you like. Because as you say, you know, life does continue, and life isn't always perfect, and it isn't always happy, is it? But also equally, and as you said, sometimes further down the line, you learn to work your way to those happier points, don't you? You learn to calm the body, so to speak. Am I correct in saying that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when something happens that maybe usually that kind of gets us all riled up and all this kind of stuff, maybe we may be riled up for a few days at first, but maybe we can whittle it down to a few minutes, or even not just a few minutes, maybe 10 seconds, where we're kind of like riled up and we're kind of like, oh, well, obviously this isn't meant to, like when I came on here today and I said about the plasterer, you know, not turning up again. It's knowing that probably that plaster isn't the right plaster as for us. No. But a long time ago, it might be something, you know, feeling something quite different, you know, feeling more incensed than anything, rather than, okay, well, obviously this one may not be the one for us right now, and that there may be someone else to come along. And I think that happens in life as well. Share with me how you found Maxwell coaching as well. Share with me how you became an executive program leader.
So I'll quickly go back to your plasterer story along with, and then come to Maxwell, because
Yeah.
somehow I think they're related. So along with saying maybe he's not meant to be here, one of the best things you can do is hone in on what your image of ultimately what the work will look like, and what you ultimately want is, right? So, you want a beautiful wall, a beautiful portion of the house, and it looks good and it looks nice. And this is how I envision it. And if it happens today or it happens after 5 days, you know what? Let it flow, because you don't want to force something by accident that it's not meant to be. And that, what would have been better if he hadn't come in the first place?
Yeah.
So focus on the
I know
essence of and this, I know you know this, and so, but I'm just sharing with some of our manifestors to say, sometimes just taking peace from what the essence of your vision looks like is sometimes enough, because then the law of attraction is working for you. Remember, you don't have to work for you. You're a pointer with your thoughts. You're the creator. There's a whole mechanism behind you that says, okay, show me what you want. I'll make sure the appointment happens. But show me a picture here. So you got to get that feeling to like, oh, this is what the wall looks like. That's so good. I'm going to hang a painting this way. It's going to get done fast, a few things, and let it go, right? Think about what you want and let it go.
Yeah.
And what attracted me to Maxwell leadership is when I knew I'm an uplifter by nature, and I knew I really wanted to have people tune in upwards to better feeling in the right way. But like I said, I somehow had this let's call it dislike about, talking without knowing, like like I knew inside of me, but I felt a structure would help. Like, um, and who best then? I went through, most of the leaders, but really what drew to me was Maxwell leadership, because I'm born a Catholic, and then he is a Christian pastor. However, Maxwell leadership is not about Christian principles. It stems from there, it grew from there, but most of the principles that he talks about are good human being principles about adding value to people, right? About personal growth, about knowing yourself so you can grow yourself, right? And this is universal. Yes, we learned it in Christianity, but doesn't matter what religion you're born in. You always want to grow. You always want to add value to people, right? Because, and you can't add value if your cup is half empty, right? So first, filling yourself, shoring yourself up, knowing who you are. So in your words, in your tribe, and through your lens, you're making that impact that you're called to make. Doesn't matter what you do. And people use Maxwell leadership principles in whatever business they are in. They're either part of work, managing a team, they're running their own business, optometrist, whatever it is, right? So you want to learn and grow people, your household, then your team, in the manner that really uplifts everybody. And that's what drew me to Maxwell leadership. And the executive program portion is where we approach corporates, right? So there are a bunch of ready-made programs that help us approach corporates in a faster pace, more according to what their needs could be, what their needs sound like, and hence what programs of ours can deliver and help them. So that's what drew me to Maxwell leadership in the first place, and then being the executive program leader. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's incredible how it's all come together for you to go and work with them. And that now you're actually, you're branching into corporate as well, which is absolutely beautiful. Because I do feel like this kind of work needs to be in corporate. It needs to be, for not just for, the individual in a business, but also for teams, especially if you've got disc profiling in there as well. Is disc profiling part of Maxwell as well? Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
That?
And the beauty is when we do the disc profiling, I'm just going to throw this little nugget in there. The disc profile, the report that we do, it's a 34-page report. It actually talks about your profile from a leadership perspective. So, how you communicate, right? How you'd communicate, what are your strengths, and then how you'd communicate with the others, how to understand what possible profiles they are. So how to language yourself. So, you understand they have better hearing for what you're saying. Like there's a golden rule, treat others like you'd like to be treated. But the platinum rule is treat others like they would like to be treated. So when you understand how people process communication, what's important to them because of how they're wired, you're able to change your approach, your languaging, tweak it, because now you understand how they're going to hear, right? How they're going to understand. And so you're able to tailor your communication accordingly. So that's the good part about the disc profiles coming through Maxwell leadership.
Wow. So it's almost like really fitting in to the business and really slotting in and honing in on those almost like blind spots, so to speak, and really transforming shining the light on the blind spots so they can make sure everything is working more productively. That's what it sounds like to me.
Brilliant. If everybody can collaborate seamlessly, the work is so much faster. Instead of we butting heads with each other all the time. And sometimes butting heads is just because I don't understand your style of communication. What do you mean when you say this? Well, duh, I just mean this because that's how I process it. I didn't mean anything bad. I once did this program at an insurance company. And in an insurance company, many of the underwriters are highly compliant, so A has to be dotted, B has to be dotted. And so one of the underwriters, actually at the end of the program said, now I understand when people ask me questions, they're just trying to get more clarity. They're not trying to be difficult to me.
And that's the thing, because you're working with people and people react in different ways to different situations, and when people are asking lots of questions, there's sometimes it can feel like, to some people, interrogation. So that makes total sense. And that's really worthwhile having in a business, because that is like literally transformative for a business. And then, I suppose, from a self-leadership perspective, to know your own strengths and weaknesses, and then to identify the team to come into the business, or identify where you need to put things in, even into your personal life, that would help you manifest and really, really utilize law of attraction so much more easier, right?
Absolutely. As soon as your understanding, and to your point, as soon as your understanding is there, you understand how law of attraction is so seamless. It's like, because you're thinking right, you're getting right. It's like almost, you're not even intentionally using it. You're just clarifying things for yourself. And as soon as you clarify things and you're in a happier place, the law of attraction gets that memento saying that, oh, she has moved. So the things I give her has moved as well,
Yeah.
So I'm not giving her things because she herself has moved. I'm giving her different things, right?
Wow.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. It makes sense. Just for the last minute, because I know you've got to run off and everything, and get to whatever's going on in your day. I just really want to, are there any tips for people who are maybe starting on their journey into law of attraction as well? Are there any tips for them as they're kind of like stepping into that journey?
A mentor of mine once said, take your dog for a walk. And because you're in the UK, I think a lot of them, would have, I mean, everywhere, even here, I see a lot of people walking with their dog. I don't personally have a pet, but if that makes you happy, go out for a walk. If having a coffee makes you happy, go have that coffee. As silly as it may sound, it's changing the trajectory of your emotions, even temporarily, from A to B. And as a thinking, feeling human, that's all you have control over, changing the trajectory of your emotions. So if something's going to make you unhappy, push it aside for a minute. Choose happy over unhappy. Again, it's not cliched. Children do it instinctively. So we think, oh, Jean, you're asking me to be naive and childlike. No. Children are born, and they're born with that instinctively because that work. Then as they grow, we unlearn, because they look at people around and we unlearn. So not to be religious, but that's something that is also said in Christianity. Don't be childish, be childlike, right? Which means change the trajectory of your, from an adult perspective, change the trajectory of your emotions, be happy. You are going to change what you're vibrating with. And hence, the law of attraction that's constantly working 24/7, nonstop in the background, is going to see your new signals and start giving you things that match that vibration. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's going to give you signals that match that vibration. So if something happens that you don't like, think, what was the essence of the vibration? What was I thinking before that? You might have been thinking something unrelated, but because the vibration matches, boom, that's shown up in your life, right? So simplest thing would be stay happy. Do whatever it takes.
And that's amazing, because it makes total sense. If it is doing that, having that cup of coffee, taking the dog for a walk or something like that, that kind of like breaks up that kind of feeling, and kind of brings you back to that kind of internal focus. Do it. I love that message. What an incredible message for today. I just want to thank you, Jean, for being on here today. And thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom, because this is, you know, it's wisdom. It is, and it's such a beauty to have on here. For anyone who's listening today, you can find Jean at changeyoutcomes.com/speaking. And there's also a 3 giveaway as well. Thank you very much. 5 tips to having consistent great days. Who wouldn't like consistent great days, right? And that's at www.changeyoutcomes.com/great days. And what we'll do is we'll pop the links as well, either below or somewhere on Spotify, in the description on Spotify, in the description on YouTube, which you'll be watching or listening to, and then they'll be on our social media channels as well. Thank you so much for coming on today, and thank you for getting up at 7 where you are, and thank you to everyone who's listening so far. Remember, you know, self-love and self-care underpins the business that you have, and it helps, you know, you live that incredible life that you have already. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you.
And Shane, I just want to honor you for the work you're doing and for the vision that you have for your tribe to continue to talk about manifesting and manifesting in the right way. Because, you know, because I'm here because somebody initially put up a YouTube video 15 years ago.
Wow.
And you are here because, you know, and somebody else is going to change their trajectory because you consistently share through your podcast. So thank you for your message, and thank you for your work in changing the vibration of the world one tweak at a time.
Oh, I love it. I love that. And that's a beautiful thing to end on. Thank you.
Thank you.